Alright, so you want to use the meta weapons in Black Ops 6, but the game just came out and you don't know what they are yet. Well, luckily, through the help of the Warzone Loadout or COD Community website, I have the 4 most picked meta weapons right now. These are the weapons that are going to be dominating your lobbies. These are the weapons that sweaties are going to be using. So if you are interested in playing at, a higher level and doing better, these are the guns that are going to help you the most. Couple things first though, I don't think that people understand what a meta weapon is. Not every meta weapon is inherently overpowered. Sometimes a meta weapon is just a weapon that is most useful across most engagements on most maps. So the general map design of a COD game will kind of dictate the meta weapons more so than other things. In some Call of Duties, the meta weapon is a fast-firing SMG, in other ones it's a very slow-firing AR. It sort of just depends on the player pace, it depends on the map size and design. We do have an overpowered gun, in my opinion, on this list that's probably going to need to catch a nerf. But using a meta weapon doesn't mean that you are inherently using something that's broken or overpowered. You're probably just using something that is the most out of your way. It is the most applicable tool on most maps in most scenarios, meaning that you can just sort of focus on your gameplay. So just want to get that out there. A lot of misconceptions about that. Also, this video is not going to be a direct weapon guide for each one of these weapons. We're just talking about the weapons themselves, sort of brief overview, the attachments I found work the best, and then we're going to move on. This is just so you pick the right weapons if you are trying to try hard, go for nukes, and win games right now. Starting off, we have the XM4, and the XM4, yeah, this has been serving me really well. Out of all of the M4 starting versatile assault rifles we have seen in Call of Duty, this is definitely one of the better ones. You'd be hard-pressed to find an attachment combination that doesn't work on this gun, and you do not have to worry about any recoil mitigation attachments. So genuinely, in my opinion, the best attachment setup for the XM4 is the one that I showed off in my beginner tips video. If you have a flinch-resistant stock, whether it's the one that gives you aim-walking movement speed or not, if you have extended mags, a suppressor, and an optic that suits you, I think you're going to do really well. Now, you might be wondering, does this gun benefit really heavily from bullet velocity or damage range changes? In my experience, not really. Some guns you can really feel it when the bullet velocity is low or the damage range is low in this game. With the XM4, I didn't really notice it. And when it came to the headshot damage barrel, it didn't really seem useful. So I would say optic, suppressor, extended mags, and then something to reduce flinch. Its mobility and recoil are really good, so you really just don't have to stress out when using this gun at all. I think genuinely you'd be hard-pressed to find an attachment combination that doesn't work on this versatile little monster. So moving on to our next gun. Our next gun is an SMG. This is the KSV, and out of all the guns on the list, I don't get this one very well. I don't prefer it. It is the second highest rate of fire SMG at 800 RPM, and that is impressive, but I find its recoil and iron sights to be pretty unappealing. I feel like I do better with the C9. I feel like the KSV being considered meta is a product of the game being new and not really being fleshed out yet. That being said though, statistically, compared to something like the C9, it has a little bit, like 1% more movement speed and crouch movement speed, has a little bit better hip fire, a little bit worse bullet velocity, a little bit better rate of fire, a little bit faster reload, but again, not that big a deal. I think the biggest thing about the KSV that should be mentioned is that it has a 22% faster weapon swap speed compared to the C9. Like the KSV and the Jackal PW have the best draw time, so if you're using an SMG with a sniper, I would say the KSV is a really solid option. But this gun just didn't mesh with me personally, which is weird. I like 800 RPM fully automatic guns, but there's something about its iron sights and its recoil pattern that I just am not a huge fan of, so it's not going to get my absolute recommendation in this video. If you are going to use it, I recommend using an optic, suppressor, long barrel, vertical foregrip, and the assault grip. All of these attachments are unlocked within the first 20 levels and are going to make the gun a lot better, because the iron sights are kind of bad. The vertical recoil isn't bad, but the horizontal recoil is bad. The sprint to fire speed is definitely worse than the C9, so if you want to win those close range engagements and take advantage of this thing's better hip fire and RPM, you want that sprint to fire speed. I don't think this gun needs Gunfighter as a wildcard, so I'd focus on perks and playstyle more so than perfecting this little SMG, because it does work pretty well when you run it like this. It's just, to me, not going to remain a meta choice very long. Moving on though, we have an SMG that is going to need to catch a nerf at some point. This thing is absolutely insane. This is the no recoil, high mag capacity, ease of use, crazy long range SMG that just, again, it needs a tweak. Right out the gate while I was live streaming with this gun, my first match with no attachments, after using an AR all day, I swapped to this thing and immediately started shredding. Right now, before this thing gets nerfed, I recommend using it. Just use this gun. Please, before it gets nerfed, you are going to regret it if you don't. If you're trying to go for nukes, if you're trying to go for high-end streaks, the PP919 is broken at the moment. I will be so surprised if on November 1st when they release Nuketown, this thing doesn't catch a nerf. It needs either slightly higher recoil, slightly shorter range, or a decrease in handling stats, I'm not sure, but it is a heavy little thing. I believe it has worst-in-class mobility, and you can definitely mitigate that by using the no stock attachment and the fast mag attachment. Fast mag 1 takes you from 64 rounds to 50, which is still a lot of effing bullets, and then without a stock, you are going to be moving a lot faster than the average person is. Like, looking at my mobility stats here with assault grip, fast mag, and no stock, you can tell that this is not something to be messed with. It is dealing 25 damage to the entire body at 21.4 meters at 625 RPM. I think this gun genuinely needs to be reduced so that it only gets 25 damage upper torso and higher. There's no reason for it to be doing 25 damage to the legs at 21 meters. I know I have long barrel on this, but it shouldn't be performing like an AR just because I have a long barrel on it. It already has 50 rounds and crazy SMG mobility, really clean iron sights, and no recoil. This thing is overpowered. Use it now before it gets nerfed. It's gonna get nerfed. I give it 3 weeks. 3 weeks max, and this thing's catching a nerf. Then the last weapon we have here is the Model L. This weapon is going to be meta throughout the entire life cycle of the game, and let me tell you why. It's a tried and true Call of Duty archetype, and I am so happy that it's here. 600 RPM, moderate recoil, that's right baby, it is the Remington R5 from Call of Duty Ghosts. This thing is capable of nasty 3-shot headshots and 4-shot body shots. The consistency in this thing is unmatched, and you can get this thing's bullet velocity up to 1400 meters per second, making it feel better than hit scan. Now, when you do unlock this weapon, it's not going to feel amazing out of the box. You are going to have to unlock some attachments for it. It is a little bit slow, it is a little bit clunky, and it does have a good amount of horizontal recoil, and its iron sights aren't that great either. But once you get an optic, once you get quick draw, once you get heavy stock, you'll be snapping onto targets, you won't be flinching when they shoot you, you can just control the recoil at your own pace. I use the gain twist barrel for bullet velocity and the suppressor because I'm a baby. This is one of the few guns I'd recommend not running a suppressor on, instead using a muzzle brake of some kind. And this gun does heavily benefit from Gunfighter. Now, this is my loadout that I've been using. This is because I've kind of mastered its recoil and I really understand the weapon after level 20 with it. I learned it, I like it. I was a Remington R5 main when I used to play competitive COD Ghosts, so this gun actually fits very well with my muscle memory. Because it only has a 600 RPM, you can benefit from using some of the smaller, faster magazine options to increase your mobility and reload speed. And if I was going to run Gunfighter on it, this is what it would look like. I'd have an optic every time because its iron sights are kind of terrible, a suppressor, the gain twist barrel, vertical foregrip, flip mag, quick draw, heavy stock, and recoil springs. Just making this thing a non-flinching laser is pretty awesome. On WarzoneLoadout.com, a lot of the Model L loadouts are focused on omni movement and making the gun snappier for omni movement, but this gun has only 600 RPM and it is very slow and clunky in terms of mobility and handling, so I am not sure why anybody would choose this weapon for that role. This is a map lockdown weapon. If you want map control, if you want to lock down a window, a power position, a height advantage, this is the weapon you use. Increase its aim down sight speed, increase its recoil control, increase your flinch resistance, and it will serve you well. Also, I will fully admit one of the reasons I use the gain twist barrel instead of the reinforced barrel is because the gain twist barrel, it just looks cool. Like, it suddenly makes the gun look attractive instead of kind of wonky, because the other barrel's a bit wonky. This gun looks like it popped out of Fallout 4 and whatever. Anyway, that is the meta weapons of the time, of the moment. That is what's going on. I wanted to get this video out as soon as possible because all of this stuff is probably going to be changing by Season 1 or at Season 1. So use these weapons now, before they're nerfed, before they're gone. I don't think the Model L deserves a nerf. I don't think that the KSV deserves a nerf, but I believe the XM4 and PP919 are gonna need some tweaks. The XM4 is far too easy and probably needs something that requires an attachment. The gun currently doesn't require any specific attachments because it's so easy to use, and I think it's dealing way too much damage for how easy of a weapon it is. And the PP919 is just fighting so far outside of its effective range with its heightened SMG mobility and low recoil. It's just doing way too much, way too often. So that could catch a couple nerfs and I wouldn't be mad. As long as it still feels good to use, great, but it should not feel good to use way outside of what should be considered its effective range. Either way, if this video helped you out, please like and subscribe. I know finding the meta when the game just came out is a little difficult, and I think we're a little bit fuzzy on some things, but yeah, the Model L, PP919, and XM4 are definitely top tier weapons and you should be giving them a go. See you in the next video. Goodbye.